All right. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Good.
Well, I just wanted to introduce you. You are an event professional in Edmonton, Tycoon Events. I'll let you explain a little bit about what you do as an event company, as all event people in the industry do different things, and that's what this series is exposing. That it's not just one thing; it's
Yeah.
multifaceted. But yeah, if you don't mind, just explaining a little bit about what you do at Tycoon Events.
Okay. So Tycoon Events, we have five pillars to our business. It's the easiest way to explain it.
Right.
So we focus on corporate event planning, whether that's internal and external. We do community and nonprofit events. We do conference management. We do event consulting, and then we also do event styling services for clients. So
Wow.
five
So
pillars sums it up really easily.
that's very clear. So how many people are involved in your company? Like how many people work with you?
We're a team of 12 in total now.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we've grown. We took on 4 new people right before COVID hit. So we used to be 8, but now we're 12. So we're still a smaller group, but for us, being a smaller sized event planning firm, it's quite a large group.
So with the shutdown, you expanded as opposed to cut back. That's interesting.
Yes. I don't think it was intentional so we essentially took on 4 new people right before COVID hit. And
Okay.
then we're faced with kind of the difficult decision of, do we keep everyone, or how do we kind of navigate through these uncharted waters? And I made the decision to keep people. And kind of, I think it also, to that point though, takes a certain type of person to like hop aboard and feel okay to be part of that unknown world, I think. And so I think that's a total testament to the people that are the newcomers to our team, that they're such troopers for kind of sticking by us through all of this.
With the new addition, what are those assets? Is it online technicians, producers? Um,
So the 4 people that we have now. So one of our team members, Stephanie Harvey, is stepping back because she's having a baby.
okay.
So her due date is June 21st. So we knew that we had to find a replacement for her inevitably, anyways. And so we had kind of started that long process way before COVID kind of came into all of our lives.
Okay.
And we had one of our other account and event managers transition into a new role, and so we knew that we had to replace his position. So we knew we were in the market, so to speak, for 2 more account and event managers, and so we were actively trying to procure those roles, which we did. We also then kind of saw a need for us as our company to bring on a designer in-house, and so we brought David in, who is our designer, and then we also had some interest in bringing on a summer marketing and event contractor. And so rather than it being like a student type of role, we kind of wanted to be really flexible with what that looked like, so that it could kind of extend to something more permanent after that summer contract ended. And so that was the 4th person that we kind of brought onto the team.
So with the shutdown of our sector for the short term, how did that affect you as personally, and then also as a company, and how did you pivot with that?
Um, it obviously, I think, like so many people, affected us in a really big way. I think that it's so hard reflecting back on it, just like, and as I've heard from the other interviews that you've done with like our colleagues, is that it's so hard to digest it. I think that you are cautious and you're very compassionate and mindful of how your clients feel, how your vendors feel, how your peers feel, how your team feels. And I think that personally, so often I tend to put other people before myself. And so I think that I was so caught up in, okay, well, how are we going to sort this out for our clients? And how am I going to make my team feel okay and keep them whole? That it almost was a nice distraction for me in a way that I couldn't just didn't really have the opportunity to sit and kind of contemplate what my personal conditions were and what my personal situation was. And so in a weird way, I'm kind of fortunate for that. I think that though there are a lot of challenges with having such a large team, it kind of was the motivation that I needed to think of, okay, well, I have 11 other people on my team. How am I keeping them whole? You kind of have to be that beacon of positivity and optimism so that you're not kind of spreading this air of we're a sinking ship and everyone's in panic mode. And I think that was a decision that I had to make very early on, right from the get-go. I think in that first week that everything started to happen, it was just like one contract after the other contract after the other contract were being canceled or postponed. And so again, if I'm just like filtering that information out to the team, they're just like, oh my gosh, like we're going down and we're going down fast. And so I think I really quickly had to think, okay, well, what kind of messaging am I going to be putting out and projecting to my team? But also being completely transparent and honest. Like, I think that that's maybe the hardest part, both personally and professionally, is that there's kind of that lack of transparency in a way. Like, I think that as like Tycoon took on more people and people saw that happening, and we're talking about, we have these new projects that we're working on and we're going through, like we incorporated right before COVID and we're doing a new brand refresh and all this kind of thing. I think there's a false sense that we're doing really well. Like we haven't lost any of our business, but in fact, we've lost all of our business.
Right.
We don't have any business until maybe December coming through. Like who knows what that looks like? And so I think that's kind of a testament to the fact that we've chosen to really invest in each other more than anything. Okay. I think that it's kind of given us the opportunity to think, okay, well, how are we really focusing on what our foundation is and what do each other need? Because if we're not investing in that, then it doesn't matter if we have all of the work in the world happening. I think that we would just like fall apart at the seams, that essentially. And so I'd say that the nice thing about everything that's happened is that I have a support team in place, as do all of the 11 other people. It's definitely been challenging and it's been really hard. But I think I choose to get up every day in knowing what I'm going to face. Like it's daunting. And when you look at the dollars that are not coming in and the unknowns and like, how are you going to pay your bills? How am I paying for the office space? How am I paying everyone their wages? I feel like that can be so paralyzing to anybody. But I think if we're always focusing on having kind of like that positive mindset, I think it just like, it's such a breath of fresh air almost. And then having everyone around me being as optimistic and having 11 other people that are kind of cheerleaders as well, you can't help not think about the positive side of things rather than kind of getting bogged down in all of the negatives and the chaos and being pessimistic and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting paradigm. Something that keeps coming up in my mind as you're speaking about government subsidy. Is that helping you get through the short term?
No.
Oh, really? Okay.
We slipped through a really, really fine crack in the system that we weren't able to apply for any government funding. Okay. And so I would have loved to be able to apply for it. I think that's kind of the misconception as well with so many businesses, is that when we're talking with some of our clients maybe and vendors or peers and friends and family, they're like, oh, it's okay because you guys got to take advantage of all of the government funding and the subsidy programs, and we haven't been able to take advantage of any of them. And so a lot of us are relying on CERB right now. A lot of us, some people were on EI beforehand, before we came on with Tycoon. And so we're kind of all doing what we need to individually to kind of stay whole. And obviously relying on, we did a lot of planning beforehand, just as a business operating. Like, I think that it's important for me always to run a business like a business rather than focus on, I'm an event planner, that kind of comes second to me. And so we kind of had savings set aside for things like this.
Okay.
And so that has helped us tremendously with getting through everything, so that everyone, to an extent, for I think like the first 3 months, knew that everyone was in a good position. But obviously, once that 3 month period kind of comes to an end, which is next month, we're just like, oh crap, we don't get to apply for the government funding. Like, what are we going to do? And so,
Right.
again, I think that kind of comes back to having a really solid team that really believe in what you're doing and what your company is all about, and they're invested in each other rather than thinking of themselves as individuals, what's in it for them alone. I think having kind of that attitude has made such a difference to keep me motivated. And we just kind of figure it out as we go.
Mm-hmm. So of those five pillars of your business, are you focusing in on any one of those, or are you still providing services for all five?
We're still doing all five. I think that it's kind of transitioned more into like a consulting role more than anything. I think that for all of our clients, they're so uncomfortable at this point pulling the trigger and saying like, yes, we're going to pivot and move to a virtual event, or we're going to do a hybrid event, or we still want to move forward with doing a live event. I think that everyone's really anxious and they want to do it, but for all of the clients that we have that are existing clients, we've gone back and said, you know what, I'd rather you wait for us to make an educated, sound decision on what you want to do when we know more. Because I don't want a client to pay us to be doing the rework right now, inevitably to have to do additional rework because we have to pivot again. And so it just isn't in their best interest.
Okay.
So I feel like we're really just providing consulting services more than anything for anyone.
Sure.
And doing it also complimentary, because again, like no one knows, and our role is to advise people in the best way that we know how, and to
Sure.
kind of bring clarity to an industry that they don't know anything about. That's why they're hiring us in the first place.
Right. So if a client does want to do a online virtual event live stream, are you working in that realm as well too? Are you providing that service?
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
We actually have a really cool, so we've, obviously everyone knows that with pivoting to virtual or hybrid or whatever that looks like, there's so many platforms that are out there right now. And I feel like people are so inundated with information that they don't, it's kind of, now we're all in a situation of, okay, well, we have thousands of options, but what option do we choose that's best for us? And I think that quite often the information that is coming out and being delivered to us, it's coming from sources that aren't actually the implementers. Like they don't actually have to do the execution piece. And so there's kind of a gap in what we're getting and how we're then able to execute. And so that was an interesting little niche that we kind of discovered as we were going through everything. And we were sitting in on, we've spent the past, like since March, we started sitting in on every single type of virtual event that we could. We're doing webinars, we're doing demos, just to kind of be able to proactively set ourselves up for success once everything kind of clears a little bit.
Yes.
And so we also were like, well, why don't we kind of do a lot of that legwork for people, so that, again, if we're successful, everyone is successful, which means our industry becomes more successful, and we can kind of get the ball rolling sooner, hopefully, than later. And so we've been working on a virtual event resource, which we're hoping to, like, fingers crossed, launch next week for everybody.
Cool.
And so it kind of is a little bit of an experiment and a test that, for our clients especially, we kind of know what will work best in an effective and efficient way, so that while we're kind of navigating through that and learning, we're also not then billing them for all of that time, because that's not the best use of their dollars either.
Right. That's very interesting. And of course, you kind of touched on this, but post-pandemic, do you see this being a part of delivery of service, doing virtual online?
Totally.
Like incorporating it into, I'm sure you're already doing that, but like I'm sure it would be more embellished, more of a comprehensive service.
Yeah, I think that it's kind of nice. I would say that, like, when you talk about all the silver linings, I think that's kind of the one of the nice things, is that I think that it'll hold our industry maybe more accountable and
Yes.
be a little more, I think, more innovatively, if that's a word.
Yes, it is. Yeah, innovative.
And so I think that it's kind of nice because I think that there was always a need to do that. But now that we're doing all of the legwork and we're putting in the time to figure out what virtual platforms work and what apps work and all that kind of stuff, that we're all more knowledgeable in that space now, so that it just kind of becomes part of your basic set of tools at the end of the day, that when you're having your conversations with your clients, it's not just solely focused on live events. I think that's kind of become an important conversation for us internally as a team, is that if we focus so much time and energy on live experiences, like your entertainment, what your design of a space looks like, what the environment is like, how it feels, how people interact, why are we not paying that same amount of detail and attention to a virtual experience? And so I think that whether the mindset has to be consistent between being live versus virtual. And so I think that because we're kind of now having those conversations, and this is now what a normal dialogue looks like in terms of designing an event, I think that it will now be the option between doing virtual, hybrid, or live. So 3 options as opposed to maybe 1 or 2.
Right, exactly. It's what audience do you want to reach, and who you
100%.
and who you're servicing. Well, that's very interesting. Speaking of silver linings, is there any other silver linings, maybe personal for you, and or from a business tip?
Yeah, I think that the silver lining for us has just been with having new people. Obviously, we have the time to onboard them,
Yeah.
which normally we don't have the luxury of doing. So that's been awesome. I think really focusing on kind of the stuff, like we all know that the event industry, and as like industry professionals, we're always so busy and we're going from one project to the other, and we're always juggling so many different things. And so it's kind of allowed us the opportunity to focus on the business part and each other as individuals. So a lot of that administrative stuff that we never get to really tackle, we now get to. We kind of get to circle back to what is the purpose of why we typically would be doing certain things within our business? Does it make sense to keep doing that, or do we eliminate it? So I think that's been a really big benefit of everything that's been happening. I think that it's given us a lot of time to really invest in each other and understand what each other really wants. And I think that it kind of has made us take a step back and think about our industry as a whole. We've been thinking about, like, there was GMID, which was fantastic, and it got together a huge group of people. And so we were like, well, what are we going to do beyond that to kind of keep people optimistic? And so we've been kind of thinking about what that looks like, and whatever that experience is it a live, hybrid, or virtual event? And so we've been trying to get people excited about October 23rd is Event Organizers Day.
Okay.
And so we've kind of been starting to think, okay, well, how can we get people excited about it? And I know there was the comment from someone that we had reached out to that people need a reason, if people might not necessarily feel like celebrating if they've lost all of their business. Right. And I think that it's kind of changing that conversation. And that's been the silver lining for us, that I think that we've never really thought about before, that we don't need the business to feel like we have the reason to celebrate. We've lost all of our business and we still feel the need to celebrate because we're a community of people. And I think that we've really recognized that no one understands what we're all going through more than each other. And so I think bringing everyone together in whatever that looks like becomes more important than ever, because you kind of globally have a support group that you're not going to find if you're talking to your parents about it or your best friend about it. They just don't get it. And it can be a frustrating feeling. And so I think that that's reason alone to celebrate, that we're so resilient and highly motivated to find the cracks in the system, that we're like, well, that's what we do, right? We're problem solvers. We kind of figure out how to make miracles happen when others would simply just say no to it and they'd walk away from it. And so I think that mentality has kind of been our silver lining through this whole thing.
I love that. It's well said. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for taking the time. And
Thank you.
Yes.